Hey yo, everybody! Welcome to another Rogue Robot review. In the last few episodes, we discussed very or relatively popular WALL-E robots that you were likely already somewhat familiar with. So let's spice things up with someone that you've probably never even noticed before, or maybe you have but you didn't realize it. That someone being who I have dubbed the MAROON robot. As in that guy from the repair ward with the life preserver ring around his neck? Yeah, we're talking about him. Oh, how I have waited and waited and waited to finally cover this guy. Because he's a robot who surprisingly fascinates me immensely, and I desperately want to go over why today. So, what makes the MAROON robot so special? Well, allow me to show you. The MAROON robot is a robot that exists in WALL-E. They were created by and large to serve some sort of duties during their time on the Axiom. I'm sorry if this introduction sounded very unceremonious, non-descriptive, and unorganized, but that's just the thing. The MAROON robot is a character who we only know so much about. Given information on them is very limited. We're never told what type of job they would have fulfilled, and therefore we also don't know what class of robots they belong to. We don't even have a model number or an official name for him. Hence why I've referred to him as just the MAROON robot throughout the video. But hey, maybe we can scrounge up some kind of answers by looking at his design, am I right? The MAROON robot has a very smooth, rich dark red exterior, with one thick blue stripe wrapping vertically around the center of his whole body, which really adds some extra flair to his mostly brownish coloration. His head is rather stumpy with curvature underneath it, a vision screen displaying two blue eyes on the front, and a small dark B&L logo on the back. He also seems to have a barcode and a number on his right side, but it's pretty much impossible to read what it actually says. His head is also held up by an extendable neck that can slide out from the top of his body thanks to these little gray tracks running along each side. Now, the majority of the background robots in WALL-E have a body structure that essentially just consists of a large floating head with arms installed underneath. That's not the case here, though. The MAROON robot actually has a torso connecting to his head and arms, making him almost resemble an action figure that had its legs pulled off. So yeah, that's pretty neat. He also has a black vent placed onto his backside. Both of his arms are held to his body by these small blue pieces in between them, which can elevate thanks to this little track on the center of his chest, as roughly demonstrated here. This means that his arms are restricted to only tilting or sliding up and down, and can't exactly reach each other to clap or anything. Speaking of his arms, they are absolutely jacked and thick, consisting of a noticeably massive forearm, with blue running along the inside of them, and some silver large joints holding these blue curving hands together. The hands themselves lack any defined fingers or claws, but the inward-facing part of them is slightly indented, with this black piece on the bottom that shows up best from certain angles. Also, fun fact, his right hand has some random yellow stripes on it, though not every individual has this detail. Now, a trait that many robots from WALL-E exhibit is what's often referred to as collapsibility. It allows them to shift their body parts around to form a distinctive compact shape. And Maroony here is, surprisingly enough, an example of that. When he retracts his head and pulls his arms inward towards his chest, he turns into this brown, curved-ended rectangular prism, like a floating slab of chocolate or something. I honestly love the way this looks with his hands up near his face, like he's all cuddled up or if he were to be biting on his fingernails or something. And when he has his arms sprawled out, he looks like a big old teddy bear who just wants a hug. It is absolutely precious.
Really? He looks really sad, like he wants a hug.
So if you couldn't already tell, I really like this guy's design. It's subtly very different from the models of most other conventional WALL-E robot extras, and does not appear to reuse any parts from other character builds. which is shocking to me and quite commendable. Plus, the color scheme just kinda reminds me of chocolate cake or those chocolate-covered blueberries that Dove makes. Now I'm all hungry. However, even after thoroughly looking at his design, we still haven't been able to infer much about him in terms of his job. Like, he's clearly designed this way for some sort of reason, right?
I don't know.
If I may be allowed to take a stab at it, judging from the strange, boxy shape of this guy's hands, my best hypothesis is that his model was specifically made for handling small boxes and crates. Though, of course, there isn't any concrete confirmation of that, so I'll just leave you guys to speculate about it. His identity and the meaning of his existence are not what truly matter, though. What matters is the vibe he gives off and what he contributes to the movie. Scenes that contain the Maroon robot are surprisingly rare. I tried my best to find some, but could only find so many. A grand total of only 3 individuals are ever seen on film, 4 if you count Bernie. The first of which is one that passes by Wally in the robot hallway right before he causes the big robot pile-up, here with his arms all stretched out. The second one is seen during the climax, standing to the left of a group of robots who are watching light bounce around in a dark closet. Yeah, that was one of them right there. Unbeknownst to him, though, the reject Purdy decided to foolishly give him a makeover on the back of his body, somehow mistaking it for a human face. The Maroonie here is either completely oblivious to this, or seems to simply not mind the graffiti. You might as well just place a kick me sign onto his back while you're at it. As for the third individual, well, I'll get to that. But trust me, I have no idea why Pixar used this model so sparingly. And this is where the questions start to float around our minds again. Like, did the animators just forget to include him in the movie more often? Did they have some sort of bias against him? Is he just a coincidentally rarer model on the Axiom? I'm afraid I still don't have any answers for you. I just really wish we could have seen this awesome looking robot model be utilized in the movie more. And so, will the reject bot make up for that? Well, let's find out. Every reject bot in WALL-E has some sort of dash of personality, whether it be prominent or minor. And the Maroon robot, or as I sometimes call this individual, the ringed robot, wink wink, is certainly no exception. He has a red boot connected to his head and upper body, which sometimes swaps sides for some reason. But that's not what we care about here, not at all. You see, the reject Maroonie is in a bit of an awkward situation. His whole gimmick is that he has a red and white striped life preserver ring stuck wrapped around his neck, and he can't exactly get it off, forced to wear it like an inflatable necklace. It's so interesting to me how the animators inserted this little background gag, and at least 90% of people aren't ever going to notice it either. No attention's ever drawn to it like with FMAD slapping himself, it's just there, and I find that kind of amusing. Just another instance of Pixar showing off that they care about the most tiny of details. Although, I will give him this much, he is indeed rocking that thing like it's an epic holiday scarf. Plus, he never has to worry about drowning with it either. And even from just a single glance at him, we can also kinda determine how he even ended up in this predicament. Remember those robotic lifeguards stationed on the Axiom's Lido deck? Well, they're all equipped with these life preserver rings. This might imply that our chocolate-looking dude was once wandering across the pool area, accidentally collided into one of those guards, got his head stuck in its life ring, and was then sent to the repair ward accordingly, and got placed in Section 3B, where he would meet the Defib lookalike, Vacuum, Van Gogh, Power, and of course, WALL-E. And while he waits for his life ring buoy thing to be removed, he frantically tries to shake it off and loosen it from his neck. Our rogue boy can be spotted for the first time when Wally and Eve enter the repair ward, with his arms sticking out from behind a wall further down the hallway. And after Wally is put in place and checks out his surroundings, we get plenty of shots showcasing the Maroon robot in the background, as he rapidly bounces around his pen while flapping and swinging his arms about, as if he's a hyperactive little kid jumping up and down in a candy shop. But when Wally tumbles out of his spot, he suddenly turns his attention towards the little garbage bot and stares at him. Later on, we get this brief look at him from behind as he watches all the pen walls gradually turn off. Now realizing that he's been freed, havoc ensues as he joyously hops from his enclosure while accidentally swapping places with the defib lookalike in the process, but that's neither here nor there. After this, he doesn't appear in any of the shots of the robot horde grabbing Wally and escaping the repair ward, but once everyone's racing down the maintenance hallways, he's shown clear as day near the front of the crowd, while humorously smacking his arms down onto the top of 444's head. This is a detail that you can only really make out in the pre-rendered version of this scene, as it's a little too off-camera in the final product to be fully witnessed, but it's such a cool and funny little detail. It really gives the Maroon robot even more personality, like Maroony is playing the bongos on one of his own friends' head. However, his excitement and cheer is short-lived, as he comes to a screeching halt, with a lineup of Stewart bots standing in front of him blocking his path, as he's now standing by Grabby, Hands, and many other robots. I also love this detail of his life ring getting flung up right into his face from the momentum of him stopping. We then get to see him from the side near the top of the group, and again when Eve arrives to the scene. Directly after this, he gets his picture taken, and then looks at Eve when she gets upset, and after humorously resting his hands on top of 444's head, man, he just treats that guy like an object.
Get off of me!
He decides to make a run for it, swerving back and forth past the Stewart bots, flailing his arms and getting pretty up close to the camera, I might add, before turning to his right. Needless to say, this was our last time ever seeing him. Such a real shame, because even though I cannot imagine what he'd actually contribute if he were to be brought back during the third act, he had a hilarious and believable quirk that set him apart from the rest of the rejects. Not to mention that the Pixar crew remained super consistent with it. There was never a moment where he was suddenly missing his life preserver ring, which is a mistake I could totally imagine them making. Plus, I just adore his awkward behavior, which was likely a byproduct of wearing that uncomfortable thing.
That's why he's crazy.
Maroony received some redemption, though, by being in the background of Bernie quite prominently, which includes being in the brief post-credit scene as well. Random side note, in several posters for the Bernie short film, you can still see the Maroon robot in the background lingering behind the titular character. I guess the designer of the posters accidentally forgot to crop him out when getting the shot of Bernie? I don't know. Maroony also had not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 pieces of concept art made for him, the first 3 of which form a transformation sequence, showcasing how the arms would unfold from the body. And the 4th is a set of 6 of them arranged inside a larger transport bot which has large arms on its sides, seemingly used for loading and unloading the bots from his back. As you might have guessed, this idea for a hauler bot for Maroony was never used in the movie, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it couldn't have existed within the Axiom somewhere off screen. Who would have thought that such a barely seen character like this guy could have so much lore and development put into them? Personally, I really like seeing so many different ideas being tried out with him, and showcasing that they might have had bigger plans for him than what was actually shown. Also, notice how our little friend here is different from his on-screen counterpart, as here he's white with red stripes going up each side, and he's lacking his extendable neck. In that previs shot that I mentioned in like every single one of these videos, we can see more of him running around in a light blue overlay color, while slamming his hands down on 444's head as I previously stated. In one of the Pixar character encyclopedias, he got a description under the title of Makeover Bot, which is obviously referencing this scene from earlier, though as you could probably guess, it doesn't really teach us anything new or exciting about him. Now, the following is a rather recent-ish discovery for me. In the Man and the Machine video, which was made to promote the film before it came out, we get a glimpse of an unfinished early version of the scene where the mini group of rejects run away from the Stewarts while looking for Wally. But the main differences here are what characters were included in this, but not in the final version of this scene. Most notably in this case, the Maroon robot. Fully in white, arms all the way out, and noticeably without his life preserver ring. Now, I think it's pretty safe to say that they just randomly handpicked and inserted his model into the scene as a temporary placeholder for another robot down the line, you know, to give the director Andrew Stanton a brief idea of how this moment would play out, but I could be wrong about that. Regardless, it's still pretty awesome. And that wraps up all of his additional appearances outside of the movie. Now, if you've been paying attention, you might have noticed that I never mentioned his full body image. And that's simply because we don't have it. It wasn't seen anywhere on that big chart of robots in the RoboKit video, because either they kinda forgot to include him,
Danny kinda forgot about,
or they just ran out of room for him there. I mean, you include the binocular robot thingy, but not him? Now, that's not to say that a full body image of his model was never created, because if the character existed, then a static photo of their model would likely exist too. The image, along with the model, must be lying about somewhere on some animator's computer, or deep within some Pixar archive, if it still exists, which it most likely does. If Pixar still has the models of the characters from Cars who appeared in the far background from years before WALL-E even came out, then I would be pretty sure that they have this guy somewhere around. I've searched long and hard, hoping for the day to come where we finally uncover a full body image of his model, but it just seemingly never shows up anywhere, and it's remained as potential lost media that has yet to be found. Oh well, maybe in another life, Maroon Robot. As you can tell, the Maroon Robot is such a sneaky, unpredictable little snake. You expect him to be just another robot among many, only to be surprised by just how many tricks he has up his sleeve. From transformation abilities to modes of transportation, from an original basis to a very funny quirk, there's enough that we know about him that makes him very likable, but at the same time, there's such an aura of mystery and elusiveness surrounding him, which makes him inherently fascinating to me. He is such an anomaly, very intriguing if very neglected and forlorn. A real weirdo, but in a good way. So far in this series, there haven't been too many characters who I would necessarily refer to as underrated, but the Maroon Robot definitely fits the bill. He deserves way more appreciation than he gets, and I can say that with my chest. Seriously, there are no character pages on the Pixar wiki about him, no fan-made names for him that people are coming up with, or even to my knowledge, any fan art made around him that I can talk about. Come on, not cool people, not cool. Yet despite all of that, the Maroon Robot has steadily become one of my favorite rogue robots in the past couple years, and I sincerely hope that there will be more about him for us to discover in the future. But if not, well...
Alright then, keep your secrets.
And hey, if any of you like him too, then you should have put a ring on him. Oh wait, Pixar already did that for you. Anyways, thank you all for watching this episode of Rogue Robot Reviews. It was a fun challenge getting to dive into what makes this guy so unique. I'm very curious to know what your thoughts are on this guy as well. That is, if you even have any thoughts on him, which I would seriously doubt, considering the fact that I've not seen a single person ever request for me to cover him yet. But regardless, what kind of job do you believe he was actually made for? What do you believe his number or name is? Feel free to throw all your ideas at me, baby. And with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. For me, 2024 is off to a pretty melancholic, yet decently exciting start so far. Let's see if we can keep that last part up. Bye-bye!